Now that the 2020 NFL Draft is in the books and the Buffalo Bills had 7 draft picks, we have to ask ourselves, could all 7 picks make the 55-man roster? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Billievers Talk. My name is Joe, and welcome to another edition of Could It Happen Buffalo Sports, where we take a question in Buffalo sports and we ask ourselves, could it happen? Again, thank you guys for joining me on Billievers Talk. My name is Joe. If you're new to the channel, guys, please be sure to hit that subscribe button as it helps out the channel greatly, so I really do appreciate it. After you hit that subscribe button, you want to hit that notification bell. YouTube will notify you when we put out new content. Guys, we try to put out somewhere between 4 and 5 videos a week, and that does not include the breaking news videos that we will do as well. So make sure you hit that notification bell so you can get notified when we post new content. Also, while you're here, hit that thumbs up button. Let me know you like this video and leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the topic at hand in this video. And the topic is, could it happen? Could all 7 of the Buffalo Bills draft picks find their way onto the 55-man active roster? And again, I did say 55. Remember, with the new CBA going into effect, we now see teams with 55 men instead of 53, since we are getting that additional playoff game at the end of the season. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects things moving forward. But we do have a 55-man roster, so it gives these seven draft picks 2 extra roster spots to get on the Buffalo Bills 55-man roster. We're going to start with A.J. Epineza. We're going to work all the way down to Dane Jackson. So we're going to cover every single draft pick. I'm going to give you my probability of them making the team, and then at the end of the video, we'll do a percentage of all of them put together and see what we come up with. So first and foremost, obviously, we're going to start with the Buffalo Bills' 2nd round draft pick, the steal of the draft in many people's eyes, A.J. Epineza, defensive end. Will he make the Buffalo Bills 55-man roster on game day? You better believe he will, right? I'm putting his percentage at 95 to 100% that he is going to make this team, barring some sort of injury in training camp or preseason, which we don't even know how long that's going to be. But barring some injury, he is going to make this team, and he is going to be a very big contributor from the get-go, right? Whether it be in a rotational defensive end role with Jerry Hughes or Trent Murphy, or he comes out and Coach McDermott makes him the starter and he starts at defensive end for the Buffalo Bills. He is going to have a big impact on this team, I think, from the get-go. So I have a high percentage on A.J. Epineza, as I'm sure all of you do, on him and the likelihood of him making the 55-man roster. You go to our 3rd round pick. Obviously, we found a complimentary back for Devin Singletary and Zach Moss, running back out of Utah. I really like this guy a lot. I think he complements Devin Singletary really well, and I think that that's going to show up on game day, and I think that that means the Buffalo Bills have to bring him in starting week 1 for the Buffalo Bills on that 55-man roster. Now, I think that his snaps might be limited. Remember what the Buffalo Bills with Devin Singletary at the beginning of last season? You might see that a little bit here as well. So he might not get that many snaps week 1, maybe not even week 2, but he will be on that 55-man active roster, and I think he will have a minor impact early on, and as the season goes on, the impact you see from a Zach Moss will increase just like it did for Devin Singletary a year ago. Now you move on to our 4th. So for Zach Moss, I would put between 90 and 95% that he is going to be on the 55-man active roster. Now you go down to that 4th round pick, and there's no guarantees here, right? There's no guarantees that the 4th round pick for the Buffalo Bills will make this team. I'm, of course, talking about Gabriel Davis, wide receiver out of UCF, who the Buffalo Bills picked up in the 4th round. Now, if you look at the wide receiver depth chart for the Buffalo Bills, currently there are 11 wide receivers on the Buffalo Bills depth chart. They're going to get that down between 5 and 6 by the time the season starts. Does Gabe Davis find himself on that roster? Does Gabe Davis find himself making it up to that 3rd, maybe 4th or 5th wide receiver spot? Remember, the Buffalo Bills' first 3 wide receivers are already set in stone pretty much, right? You got Stephon Diggs, you got John Brown, you got Cole Beasley. So that means there's 2 spots, maybe 3 spots available for these wide receivers, and you're talking about 6 or 7 wide receivers that still have to find a home on the Buffalo Bills roster. So is Gabriel Davis, one of those wide receivers? I personally think he is. When you think about the fact that he's 6'2", so he's already tied for Duke Williams as the tallest wide receiver on the roster until we get to a later draft pick, of course, that is. I think he has a good shot to make this team. Fourth round draft pick, you're not going to take lightly. You expect him to have some sort of capabilities during the season. Will he be a week 1 starter? I don't think so, but he might be that 5th guy on the depth chart, ready to go, ready to make a difference, maybe even help in the return game on special teams. Who knows? But I think you'll see him on the 55-man roster. Give me somewhere between a 70 and 75% chance to see Gabriel Davis as a wide receiver on the Buffalo Bills starting week, or as of week 1. He's not going to be starting, but as of week 1, he'll be on the active roster. You go down to that 5th round pick, and this is where a lot of Bills fans, their hairs went up a little bit when they heard this pick, and they're not sure what to make of it. In the 5th round, the Buffalo Bills, of course, select quarterback Jake Fromm out of Georgia. Will Jake Fromm be on the active roster come week 1 of the NFL season? I think this one's a very interesting one, guys. I do not see Jake Fromm having any chance of overtaking Josh Allen for a starting job, right? Josh Allen's our starter, and no one should think anything different ever going into the NFL season, unless, of course, he gets hurt somehow. Hopefully not, but Josh Allen is the Buffalo Bills starter in 2020. Now, what does that mean? That means Jake Fromm, if he wants to make this team, it's going to have to be as a backup, right? You look at Matt Barkley, you say, is his job really safe for the Buffalo Bills? Matt Barkley has 1 year left on his contract, so I thought maybe Brandon Beane would do what he likes to do with players with 1 year left on the contract, maybe trade him, get a late round pick for him, maybe a 6th, 7th round pick, something like that. Again, remember, AJ McCarron, we traded to the Raiders, we got a 5th round pick. There are going to be QB needy teams, especially as we get closer and closer to the season, who are going to be willing to take a gamble on a guy, on a journeyman quarterback like Matt Barkley, who can maybe help out a young quarterback getting ready to make his first couple NFL starts. Something like that would give the Buffalo Bills leverage to get a 6th, 7th round pick, and then we can have Jake Fromm as a backup. However, I don't see that happening here. I don't see Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott going away from Matt Barkley. I think Matt Barkley, Ken Dorsey have a really good relationship, and I think that's going to keep Matt Barkley here to play out his contract for the Buffalo Bills, and I think that's going to help Matt Barkley. So what does that mean for Jake Fromm? Do the Buffalo Bills carry three quarterbacks this year? Remember, we do have that extra roster spot, or 2 extra roster spots now, 55-man roster. Do the Buffalo Bills carry that 3rd quarterback? I don't see it happening just because I don't see what else Jake Fromm can give to this team. We saw Webb as a 3rd quarterback for this team 2 seasons ago, maybe 3 seasons ago, but I think it was 2 seasons ago now I'm thinking about it. But that's because he could help out on special teams as well. He had multiple facets of his game where he could help out this team. Jake Fromm doesn't necessarily have that. Jake Fromm's either going to be a quarterback or he's not playing in the game. So do the Buffalo Bills carry 3 quarterbacks this season? I really don't see it happening. I think Jake Fromm's chances of making this team without going out on the practice squad first are probably 50-50. I really believe that. I think that he could impress during training camp. He could give people a reason to look at him as a backup instead of Matt Barkley. I just think that relationship between Matt Barkley, Ken Dorsey, Josh Allen, I think you want to keep that intact as long as you can. So then you move on to our two 6th round picks, right? First 6th round pick, Tyler Bass, kicker out of Georgia Southern. And obviously, I think this is very much a 50-50 matchup, right? You have Steven Hauschka for the Buffalo Bills, who is coming off a rough season. But if you look at the season and break it down into halves, so that first half of the season, obviously a lot rougher than the second half of the season. Now, one thing that we know about Steven Hauschka, he went 1 for 6 on field goals of 50 or more yards last season. Obviously, with this kid, Tyler Bass, he can kick the laces off the ball, right? We've all seen it happen. We've seen him kick that 55-yarder without even taking a step forward. So obviously, we know he has the leg. Can he beat out Steven Hauschka? You look at Steven Hauschka signing that contract extension last season. You would think that would be in favor of Steven Hauschka. I'm just not sure, because if we cut Steven Hauschka, it will save the Buffalo Bills $1.5 million in cap space. If you cut Tyler Bass, it might not be a lot of money, but you end up costing yourself more money by cutting Tyler Bass than keeping him on the Buffalo Bills roster. So if you talk about age and experience, you have to go with Steven Hauschka. If you talk about cheaper, you have to go with Tyler Bass and better leg too as far as distance. So when it comes to this matchup, I really believe it's a 50-50 matchup as far as who's going to make this roster. Guys, let me know what you think in the comment section. Do you think Tyler Bass beats out Steven Hauschka, or do you think this lights a fire under Steven Hauschka's butt and he begins to be the Steven Hauschka of old and we see improvement in his kicking game and then he is the starter for the Buffalo Bills? Moving on to the second Buffalo Bills 6th round draft pick, the Buffalo Bills pick a 6'4" wide receiver. Remember, I alluded to him a little bit earlier. 6'4" wide receiver Isaiah Hodgins out of Oregon State. I actually really like the idea of Hodgins making this roster, right? Which would mean that I have 5 wide receivers. I have Brown, Diggs, Beasley, and then I would have Davis and Hodgins. So do the Bills keep 6 wide receivers? Because I really would find it hard to believe that the Bills went 2 for 2 in wide receivers during the NFL draft, and they cut guys like Isaiah McKenzie, like Andre Roberts. I think that would just be a hard sell to a lot of people in Buffalo Bills country for the Bills Mafia. However, I like Isaiah Hodgins' size at 6'4". I think that he can help you out in the red zone, give you that red zone threat other than Dawson Knox that I think this team's been missing. So I like the chances of Hodgins making this team. I'm putting the chance of Hodgins making this team somewhere between 65 and 75%. Really like his chances. And then you go down to one of my favorite draft picks of the draft for the Buffalo Bills. That's their 7th round pick, Dane Jackson, cornerback out of Pittsburgh. Guys, I really like this pick a lot, but that does not mean that I see Dane Jackson making the Buffalo Bills 53-man roster or 55-man roster starting week 1 of 2020. I think there's a lot of development that has to go into him. Remember, in high school, and I'll keep saying this, in high school, he was a quarterback for his high school team, converted to cornerback in 2017, so he hasn't had too much time at the cornerback position, so you know there's a lot of raw talent there. I think the Bills can work with that talent, but I think it's going to start off on the practice squad. So I only give Dane Jackson maybe about 20, maybe 15% chance of making this team. There would have to be some injuries in front of him. Obviously, we don't want that to happen. We know that we addressed the cornerback situation a lot in free agency. Levi Wallace, Josh Norman, just to name a few of the guys that we bring to Buffalo. So there's not enough space at the cornerback position right now for Dane Jackson to find a spot on the 55-man roster. However, I think with development and with time, he could definitely be a threat to be a contributor to the Buffalo Bills. So again, guys, let me know what you think. Again, those were the 7 draft picks. If you ask me to add them all up and see what the chances were for all 7 draft picks to make it onto the 55-man roster, I would probably put the percentage somewhere between 15 and 25%. You look at Dane Jackson, you look at Tyler Bass, you really look at Jake Fromm as the 3 that are really question marks for me as far as making this roster, and that puts that percentage down to about 15% for all 7 of these guys making the roster. But guys, if you think about that, that's actually pretty high for a lot of these draft picks. I think that the Buffalo Bills should be very excited about the 2020 NFL Draft. I'm pretty sure most of Bills Mafia is. So let me know what you think in the comment section. Do you think all 7 members of the 2020 Buffalo Bills draft class have a chance to make the opening day 55-man roster, or do you think some of them are going to take some time? And if you think some of them are going to take some time, who do you think are the guys that are going to be on the outside looking in? Again, guys, thank you for joining me on this special edition of Believers Talk, a Could It Happen edition. Could all 7 Buffalo Bills draft picks make it onto the 55-man roster week 1 for the Buffalo Bills? Again, I don't think so, but you never know. I thank you guys for joining me again. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, hit that subscribe button, like this video, leave a comment. I look forward to talking to you all soon. Until I do, go Bills.